Eniola had always believed love would feel like peace. On her wedding night, dressed in ivory silk and trembling hope, she waited beneath the soft glow of lanterns in the bridal suite of a grand soul estate. The air smelled of roses and jasmine, flowers chosen by the man she was supposed to marry. She had been married that morning to Sean, a powerful Korean businessman known for his cold charm and distant eyes. The marriage was strategic, arranged through family alliances. Sean was respectful, composed, and unreadable. He had kissed her forehead at the altar, not her lips. "You will rest," he had said calmly. "I'll join you later." So when the door opened that night, Eniola did not turn. She simply stood, heart pounding, and whispered, "I was afraid you wouldn't come." The man behind her said nothing. When she turned, she saw familiar eyes. Dark, intense, but something was different. Softer, warmer, as if he was looking at her not out of duty, but desire. Before fear or doubt could rise, Eniola stepped closer, and she kissed him. It was not the shy kiss of a bride fulfilling an obligation. It was instinctive, deep, electric. The man froze. Then slowly he kissed her back. Not gently, but as if he had been waiting for her his whole life. Her breath caught. His hands trembled at her waist, as though touching something sacred. When they finally parted, his forehead rested against hers, breath uneven. "Eniola," he whispered. She smiled softly. "You sound like you missed me already." Pain flashed across his face, because the man she kissed was not Sean. He was Eunwoo, Sean's identical twin brother, the true heir of the Korean Mafia, the one who had stayed away to protect her. Eunwoo pulled back abruptly. "You shouldn't look at me like that," he said hoarsely. Confused, Eniola laughed nervously. "Why are you acting strange? You're my husband." The words shattered him. He stepped away, fists clenched. "I'm not." Silence crashed between them. The truth came out slowly, painfully. Sean, her groom, had sent his twin to check on her. Unaware she had never met either of them alone before the wedding. Eunwoo had lived in the shadows, ruling the underworld with blood-stained hands, while Sean lived in the light. "I didn't mean to touch you," Eunwoo said, voice breaking. "But the moment you kissed me, I forgot who I was." Eniola's heart trembled. She should have been angry, afraid. Instead, her chest ached. "Then why?" she whispered, stepping closer. "Does it feel like I kissed the right man?" Eunwoo looked at her like a man undone. "You don't know what you're saying," he murmured. "I'm dangerous." She reached for his hand anyway. "But you kissed me like you were gentle." That night, nothing more happened. But something irreversible began. In the days that followed, Eniola found herself thinking not of her husband, but of his twin. On the way, Eunwoo looked at her as if she were the last light in his darkness. Sean noticed, and one evening he confronted his brother. "She loves you," Sean said quietly, "and you love her." Eunwoo shook his head. "I won't destroy her life." But fate had already chosen. When Eniola finally stood before Eunwoo again, tears shining in her eyes, she said only one thing. "I don't want the man I married on paper, that I want the man who kissed my soul." Eunwoo fell to his knees before her, forehead touching the floor. "If you choose me," he said, voice shaking, "I will leave the Mafia. I will give up blood for peace. I will become worthy." She lifted his face and kissed him again. Slow, certain, forever. And this time there was no mistake. Only love. Only destiny. Only the man she was always meant to find, on the night she kissed the wrong one, and found the right heart. They did not marry beneath chandeliers or flashing cameras. Eniola and Eunwoo chose a life that whispered instead of shouted. Their home sat on the edge of the sea, far from soul's noise, white walls softened by climbing jasmine, wide windows that welcomed morning light. It was small compared to the empire Eunwoo once ruled, but to him it was the richest place on earth. Every morning, Eniola woke first. She loved watching him sleep. This man who once commanded fear now rested peacefully, one arm instinctively reaching for her even in dreams. She would trace the faint scar near his collarbone, a remnant of a life he had buried for her. "You're staring again," he murmured one morning, eyes still closed. She smiled. "I'm making sure you're real." He opened his eyes then, soft and warm. "I'm real. I'm here." That was the promise he kept every day. Their life was made of simple rituals. Eniola cooked while Unwoo washed vegetables beside her, sleeves rolled up, listening as she hummed old African melodies. Sometimes he didn't understand the words, but he felt them. Felt her history, her warmth, her home. At night, they ate on the balcony, feet touching under the table, sharing quiet laughter and long silences that never felt empty. Unwoo learned peace slowly. He learned how to garden, how to fix broken chairs, how to sit with Eniola as she braided her hair, handing her pins and asking questions about her childhood. In return, she learned his silences, when they meant memories, when they meant regret, and when they simply meant he was content. On rainy evenings, they curled together on the sofa, wrapped in one blanket. "I used to think love was a weakness," Unwoo confessed once, fingers entwined with hers. "Now I know it's the bravest thing I've ever done." Eniola rested her head on his shoulder. "You didn't lose your strength. You redirected it. Sometimes the past knocks. Old names, old shadows. But Unwoo never opened those doors again." When fear crept into him at night, Eniola would pull him closer and whisper, "You're safe. You chose light." And he believed her. They rarely spoke about how their love began with a mistake, a kiss meant for another. That truth no longer mattered. What mattered was how Unwoo brewed her tea exactly the way she liked it, how Eniola kissed his forehead whenever he grew quiet, how their hands always found each other without thinking. Love lived in the ordinary, in shared laughter, in quiet forgiveness, in choosing each other every morning. And on some nights, as they lay together listening to the sea, Unwoo would murmur, "I kissed you once by accident, and spent my life earning the right to love you." Eniola would smile in the dark and answer, "And I kissed the wrong man, so I could find my forever." Their marriage was not loud. It was steady. It was healing. It was home. Marriage did not shrink Eniola. It gave her space. In the quiet coastal town where she and Unwoo lived, mornings were slow and golden. Unwoo would leave early to help at the docks or tend their small garden, always kissing her palm before he went. "Don't wait for me," he'd say. She never did, because she was no longer waiting for life to begin. Eniola had carried many dreams with her from Africa, dreams that once felt too big, too distant. In soul, she had been a bride first, a symbol, a name attached to powerful men. But here, in peace, she became herself again. Started small. She noticed women in the town, immigrants, widows, young mothers, struggling quietly. Language barriers, isolation, forgotten talents. Eniola began inviting them into her home in the afternoons when the sea breeze was gentle. They shared tea, stories, and laughter. She listened, and listening became her purpose. With Unwoo's quiet support, she opened a women's skills and healing center near the shore. Warmth in every corner. Women learned sewing, language skills, and small business basics. But more than that, they learned to speak again. Eniola taught with kindness, never authority. "Your hands remember what your mouth has forgotten," she would say, guiding trembling fingers back into confidence. Unwoo watched her from a distance at first. The way she stood tall while helping others. The way her laughter filled rooms. The way pain turned into purpose in her presence. One evening, he waited for her outside the center. When she stepped out, tired but glowing, he handed her a bottle of water and said softly, "You're saving people." She shook her head. "I'm just reminding them who they are." He reached for her hand, eyes shining with pride. "You reminded me first." Their marriage adjusted gently around her growth. Some nights she came home exhausted, and Unwoo would already have dinner waiting. He never asked her to slow down, never asked her to choose between love and purpose. Instead, he learned to walk beside it. When her center officially opened, Unwoo stood at the back of the room, unnoticed. No one there knew he was once feared across cities. They only saw a husband holding a camera with shaky hands, filming his wife as she spoke with calm authority and compassion. Later that night, he held her close and whispered into her hair, "You built this with your heart." Eniola smiled. "You gave me the safety to try." They understood then. Love was not possession. It was permission. Permission to grow. Permission to heal. Permission to become. And in the quiet life they chose, Eniola did not disappear into marriage. She expanded, and Unwoo loved her even more for it. Eniola noticed it in the mornings, how the sea breeze no longer tempted her outside, how her body asked her to slow down. Unwoo noticed before she said anything. He always did. One evening, as she stood by the window staring at the horizon, he came behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "You're holding something back," he said softly. She turned, eyes shining with unshed tears, and placed his hand over her heart. "Or someone," she whispered. For a long moment, Unwoo didn't breathe. Then his knees weakened, and he pressed his forehead to hers, shaking with a joy so pure it scared him. "Our child," he murmured. She nodded. From that day, their home changed, not in size, but in tenderness. Unwoo became careful in ways Eniola had never seen. He woke earlier to prepare her tea. He walked on the outer side of the road. He learned how to cook dishes from her childhood, asking her mother questions over long video calls, listening like a devoted student. At night, he spoke to her belly in a low, reverent voice. "You chose a gentle mother," he'd say, "and I promise, a gentle father." Their house grew warmer. They repainted the spare room together. Soft earth tones, wooden shelves, sunlight spilling in like a blessing. Eniola hung hand-woven fabrics from Africa beside delicate Korean wind chimes. Cultures blended, stories intertwined. "This," she said one afternoon, stepping back to admire it, "is our child's world." Unwoo smiled. "Then it's perfect." When the baby arrived, the storm outside mirrored the chaos inside the hospital room. But the moment their child cried, a strong, living sound, Unwoo broke. He wept openly as he held their daughter for the first time, her tiny fingers curling around his own. "She's warm," he whispered. "She's real." Eniola watched him with a love that felt infinite. They named her Era, meaning beautiful beginning. Home became sacred after that. Mornings were filled with soft cries and laughter. Unwoo learned how to rock Era to sleep, pacing the floor at night, whispering promises he intended to keep. Eniola watched them from the doorway, heart full. Their living room held toys now. Their kitchen echoed with songs again. Their balcony, once a quiet place, became a space where they watched sunsets with their daughter cradled between them. One evening, as Era slept against Unwoo's chest, Eniola leaned into him. "We built this from a mistake," she said softly. He kissed her temple. "No, we built it from courage." Their love was no longer just theirs. It lived in laughter, lullabies, the quiet certainty of a home where past darkness could never reach. And as the sea whispered outside their windows, Unwoo held his wife and child and knew their home breathed with love. Not the loud kind that demanded attention, but the kind that settled into walls and stayed. Morning light always found its way through the curtains, spilling across wooden floors where Era would later crawl, laugh, and leave her small, joyful chaos. Eniola turned their house into a story. Every corner carried intention. African woven baskets by the door, Korean ceramics lining the shelves, framed photos of sunsets, laughter, and hands entwined. The scent of spices and sea air blended into something that felt like belonging. Unwoo watched it all with quiet awe. He loved coming home more than anything. Some evenings, he returned to find Eniola humming as she cooked, Era balanced on her hip. He would slip behind her, kiss the curve of her neck, and whisper, "I'm home," like it was a vow. And she would always answer, "We're here." Their bedroom became a sanctuary. Soft lamps, crisp sheets, long conversations after Era fell asleep. Unwoo often lay on his side, tracing invisible patterns on Eniola's arm, listening as she spoke about her dreams, her center, the women she helped. "You're still growing," he told her one night. She smiled. "So are you." They learned romance in new ways. In stolen kisses over a sleeping child, and shared baths when exhaustion melted into closeness, and slow dancing in the living room, while music played low and Era slept nearby. One rainy night, the power went out. Candles flickered, shadows danced on the walls, and Unwoo pulled Eniola into his arms. "Do you remember our first kiss?" he asked quietly. She laughed softly. "The wrong man. The right fate," he corrected. They swayed gently, her head resting on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. "I used to rule fear," he confessed. "Now I just want to protect this." She looked up at him, eyes full of love. "And you do. Every day." Later, as they lay together, the rain tapping against the windows, Unwoo kissed her. Some evenings, he returned to find Eniola humming as she cooked, Era balanced on her hip. He would slip behind her, kiss the curve of her neck, and whisper, "I'm home," like it was a vow, and she would always answer, "We're here." Their bedroom became a sanctuary. Soft lamps, crisp sheets, long conversations after Era fell asleep. Unwoo often lay on his side, tracing invisible patterns on Eniola's arm, listening as she spoke about her dreams, her center, the women she helped. "You're still growing," he told her one night. She smiled. "So are you." They learned romance in new ways. In stolen kisses over a sleeping child, and shared baths when exhaustion melted into closeness, and slow dancing in the living room, while music played low and Era slept nearby. One rainy night, the power went out. Candles flickered, shadows danced on the walls, and Unwoo pulled Eniola into his arms. "Do you remember our first kiss?" he asked quietly. She laughed softly. "The wrong man. The right fate," he corrected. They swayed gently, her head resting on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. "I used to rule fear," he confessed. "Now I just want to protect this." She looked up at him, eyes full of love. "And you do. Every day." Later, as they lay together, the rain tapping against the windows, Unwoo kissed her slowly, deeply, but with a reverence that came from gratitude, not urgency. Their romance was patient. It lived in glances across rooms, that hands brushing while passing each other in the hallway, and this way Unwoo always checked if the doors were locked. Not because of enemies, but because he cherished peace. On weekends, they sat on the balcony with Era between them, watching the sea paint the sky gold. "This house changed me," Unwoo said once. Eniola shook her head gently. "You changed when you chose love." Their home was not built of stone alone. It was built of forgiveness, of second chances, of a kiss that led them here. And every night, as the house grew quiet and Era slept safely between dreams, Unwoo would pull Eniola close and whisper, "This is my forever." And she believed him, because forever was already living inside their walls. As seasons passed, their home seemed to grow gentler. Vines climbed the balcony railings. Flowers bloomed in uneven rows where Unwoo insisted on gardening himself, and laughter became the house's natural sound. Era's footsteps, first unsteady, then confident, echoed through hallways once filled only with silence. Eniola loved the early evenings most. She would open the windows, letting the ocean breeze carry in calm, while Unwoo prepared dinner with careful focus. He had learned her rhythms, when she needed quiet, when she needed laughter, when she needed to be held without words. Sometimes she watched him from the doorway, sleeves rolled up, shoulders relaxed. "This house softened you," she teased once. He glanced at her, smiling. "You did." Romance lived in the unnoticed moments. In this way, Unwoo always saved the last piece of fruit for her, and the way Eniola folded his shirts, just the way he liked, and the way they spoke each other's names like prayers. At night, after Era slept, they returned to being simply husband and wife. They shared tea on the balcony, legs tangled beneath a blanket, stars scattered above them. Unwoo would rest his head on Eniola's shoulder, a man who no longer feared stillness. "I used to think peace was boring," he admitted once. She laughed softly. "And now I think it's addictive." Their bedroom remained their quiet refuge. Slow kisses, gentle laughter, long embraces that spoke of trust rather than urgency. Unwoo never touched her without intention, never held her without gratitude. Love, for him, was something to protect. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.